So my daughter, Virginia, is now 20 years old, and she was the first child in the United States diagnosed with DDX3X. We did not get a diagnosis until she was 9 years old, but I knew something was wrong almost from birth. I saw every developmental pediatrician, neurologist, geneticist, any specialist I could see up and down the East Coast, and when she started to speak, I said, she sounds like a deaf person. And so I took her to an ENT, and the ENT said, you're right, she can't hear in one ear, and the other ear is pretty clogged, but you and I both know something else is going on here, right? And he said, well, I've been going to this amazing clinic that made me remember why I love medicine. And it was a clinic for Amish and Mennonite children in rural Pennsylvania. I met with the most extraordinary doctor, Dr. Kevin Strauss, who went to Harvard Med School and was the most compassionate doctor I'd seen up until this point. And so my husband and I and Virginia and her 3 siblings all gave blood, and they sorted through each of our 23 billion letters of DNA. 6 months almost to the day later, they called me and they said, we know what she has, and there's one other case in the world.
You know, we had diagnosis for developmental delay, cerebral palsy, all kinds of other things. We just knew something was off. And so we went through all the other tests, and then, you know, the last step is whole genome sequencing, which is how we found out.
You know, anybody that's been a parent you kind of have this idea of what your future might look like. You envision your kids growing up and what that might look like. When you find out something's different, I think most parents can agree there's a stage of grieving you go through of kind of that lost future. Even though it wasn't there, you don't know what to replace it in your mind.
I will never forget that day. I was in a parking garage and I was leaving the courthouse, and I received a phone call from the genetics clinic, and they said, we have a diagnosis finally. And we had been searching for that diagnosis for years. We had gone to the Mayo Clinic, we had done all sorts of testing. And I said, okay, well, what is it? And they said, it's DDX3X. And I said, hold on, and I grabbed a pen and paper and I wrote it down, and I was like, well, what does that mean? And the woman on the other side of the phone said, we don't know, but we can have an appointment for you in 3 months and we'll discuss it with the geneticist. And I said, 3 months? Like what? And she said, if we find out some more information, we'll call you, but all we know is it's DDX3X, that's it.
We live in Los Angeles. We flew up to San Francisco to meet with our neurologist, Dr. Elliot Shear, who thought that there was a genetic component involved. So he told us that it was a rare disorder called DDX3X, but that they didn't know that much about it. And then he looked at me and said, and you need to start a family foundation. So not only was I told that my daughter has a rare genetic disorder, but then I was also assigned homework. Fortunately, I was connected by amazingness and divine intervention to Beth Buccini, and so we co-founded the organization together.
I got my diagnosis in November of 2014 for Virginia. And so the Clinic for Special Children said, there are 8 families in the US, and we want to have a family day, and let's try to get as many families as we can to come, so please come. I showed up, and they explained it was a mutation of the DDX3X gene that causes intellectual disability. It was a really, really, really powerful day for this very teeny group of us. There was one DDX3X child present, and besides that, it was just parents of DDX3X children. And at the end of that day, the genetic counselor at the clinic, who's now the operations director, said to me, okay, Beth, you need to launch a foundation. You can make a patient registry, you can get families together and provide support, and you can find a cure. And I said, I work in fashion. I definitely can't do that. And she's like, no, you have the right personality for it. And there's another mom who you should do it with. And so she introduced me to the other mom. And I said, well, do you work in science? And she said, no, I work in Hollywood PR. And I was like, this is ridiculous. How are we going to do this? But 2 hours later, on a phone call where we both cried, we committed to doing it. And so we launched the foundation in 2016, really, with a website. We launched our website in February of 2016 with a patient registry, with hopes of funding research and finding, if not a cure, a treatment for all of these amazing humans with DDX3X.
Children who have developmental disabilities, for so long, there were so few conditions we understood, things like Down syndrome and those sort of things. But with modern testing, literally thousands of new conditions are being described that we would never figured out without genetic testing. The challenges that people face in DDX3X are not unique to that condition, right? That it's the bigger community of persons with developmental disabilities. And the challenges are, first off, just activities of daily living, right? Getting through the day, doing the things that I need to get done. All of us have to deal with that, and these patients need more help. The second thing is integration into society. Okay, again, over my 40 years of doing this, clearly society has got so much better as far as accepting people with disabilities and those sort of things, but there's still a long ways to go. And we still have to deal with the challenges of hypercritical people, nosy people, judgmental people, all those sort of things. And so again, that's one of the things that the support groups do, is they raise that awareness. Most people are afraid of what they don't know.
So I found out about the foundation through doing my own research of when I found out when I got her diagnosis. And it had popped up that there was a foundation that had been created, and it was a blessing to know that there were people out there that had children that had the same struggles, and just knowing that I wasn't alone.
This foundation needs help. It is the drugs and the research only come with money and support. Because we are a rare genetic syndrome, that means our numbers aren't big enough for large pharmaceutical companies to have interest or the government to have interest. So everything we do is dependent upon donations.
It's awkward to ask for donations. It's also hard for us to put into words where that's going. You can't specifically say, hey, this is going for this. I mean, it's, medical research and getting it to the next level and getting awareness out. So thank you. Every dollar matters. The scientists are doing everything they can, and we have only so much time in a day. So we would love to do more fundraising and contribute how we can. But I think so every little bit helps. We beyond thankful.
My biggest advice would be is if you have the funds and the ability to be able to support a nonprofit or us specifically at DDX3X, is that utilize those dollars to support us or find some other rare genetic disorder or something that's close to your family, because progress will not happen without financial support, and rare disorders is the new norm.
It's definitely softened my heart, honestly. It's having kids in general will do that to you, but having a DDX3X kid will, it profoundly changes your life, and you have to adjust, and your heart changes, and you notice other people that you didn't notice before.
Their lives are not going to be about being famous or being on a stage and attention and money. It's about having an enriching life where you're loved and safe, and that's what's really important.
Lily has taught me so much about love because she is so incredibly loving. She just represents joy, and she is so happy all the time. And so me and my husband, Alex, get so much satisfaction out of that. I just want her to be happy. And we didn't start the foundation necessarily to help our own girls, but we wanted to help future generations.